Booking economy flights with points, is this a value play or a value trap? Today I'm going to show you exactly when using your hard-earned points for economy flights makes sense and when it's actually costing you value. When talking about redeeming your points, us experts put so much emphasis on transferring your points to partners, but here's the truth. Most people don't realize that booking economy flights with points rarely give you maximum value. In some cases, you're actually better off paying cash or using your points through a travel portal instead. But how do you know when it's actually worth it? Well, there's a simple system to make this decision easily. And I'm going to walk you through some real examples so you'll never waste your points again. Let's get into it. So let's first imagine we're planning a trip to Europe with a classic multi-day itinerary. Let's say we're going from San Diego to London, then you're going to make your way to Paris and then fly back from Paris to San Diego from there. Now, when I search for award flights, I find these options. San Diego to London, non-stop for 30,000 points and $83. This is flying British Airways and booked with British Airways Avios. On the return flight, we find a good deal for just 15,000 points from Paris, $300 in taxes, flying with KLM Airlines, and we're booking it through Virgin Atlantic. So that's a total of 45,000 points and $380 in fees for a round-trip flight to Europe. Not bad, right? But before you book, there is a critical step that most travelers miss. We need to determine if you're actually getting a good value compared to just paying cash or using the travel portal. To figure this out, we need to know our cash alternative. And to do this, you would simply search on Google Flights for the same flight itinerary. And now some people look for the same exact flights that we found, but I really prefer to look for an equivalent flight that you would take. So if it's a nonstop, look for a nonstop. If it has a one-stop, and look for that one-stop flight, or maybe even a nonstop if it's cheaper. And so I found this flight itinerary with our one nonstop segment and the return with a single stop for just $1,002. So now that we have our points price and our cash price, we can figure out the value that we're actually getting. And so at this point, this is making us ask what makes a point redemption worth it? And that really depends on what points you're using and the best alternative value that you can get. So think about it this way. If you got American Express, Capital One, or City points, you can redeem through the travel portal or just cash them out at 1 cent per point. That is your baseline value. And so in this case, if you have 100 points, that's 100 pennies, $1 worth of value. If you have 1,000 points, it's $10 worth of value there. Does that make sense? But the thing is, if you have Chase points, your points are worth more whenever you book through the travel portal. If you have the Chase Sapphire Preferred, you're going to get 25% more value. So that's 1.25 cents per point or $1.25 per 100 points that you spend, $12.50 for 1,000 points that you spend, etc. And the Chase Sapphire Reserve gives you 50% more value. So that's 1.5 cents per point or $1.50 per 100 points, or $15 whenever you spend 1,000 points, etc. So now the question becomes, is your redemption through a transfer partner beating what you can get through the travel portal? And to do this, we need to do math. And you can do this math manually, but I've created something better. It's called the Award Redemption Analyzer. Let me show you how it works with our Europe example here. Okay, so to use this tool is very simple. First, you can choose whichever travel portal you're comparing to. So if you got the Chase Sapphire Preferred, you could just select this option here. And then you're going to type in the cash price that we're using. And so we found this 1,002 price that we'll enter here. And then you simply just type in the points prices that we found. And then you also want to add the taxes and fees of each of these redemptions as well. And so this will automatically calculate our cent per point, or the value that we're getting for every point that we use. And it's 1.47, which is great and good compared to the Chase Sapphire Preferred. But let's say you had the Chase Sapphire Reserve. It's actually not as good if you were just to redeem these points on something you find on the travel portal. And so this is how you can find the differences there. But also to note, if there was a transfer bonus, for example, from Chase over to British Airways, let's say at 30%, that value goes up because you'll be using less points. So as you can see, the value that you're getting really depends on various factors, including the cash price, the number of points you're using, and how high those taxes and fees are. So now in order to do this math yourself, all you gotta do is just take the cash price, subtract the taxes and fees that you'll need to pay, and then divide that number by the total number of points you're redeeming. That'll give you a decimal. You can multiply it by 100, and that'll give you this nice round number. And that's how you calculate cent per point. But now let's look at another scenario. Let's say we're flying from JFK to Paris, and the best option I can find is this 25,000 point flight with $132 in taxes and fees. And this is by transferring our points over to Flying Blue or KLM Airlines. $132 for a one-way flight to Europe doesn't sound bad, but if we go and look at this cash price again on Google Flights, you can see that's only $364. And so as you can see, if you plug this into the calculator, the value drastically changes. You'll actually get less than 1 cent per point. So this is in fact a horrible redemption, and you should not transfer your points in this case. Now, for example, here's what happens when we calculate another trip in business class. This one is from JFK to London via Virgin Atlantic. And with Virgin Atlantic, it's possible to find some incredible deals like this business class flight for just 40,000 points and $258 one way. This flight normally would cost $2,108. So you plug that into the calculator and you see that's a fat 4.62 times more than what you would get if you were just to cash these points out. This is 3 times the value that you would get through the Chase Sapphire Reserve portal. And so this is why everyone tends to encourage you to use your points for business class, because technically and mathematically, you get more value for your points. But now, does this mean that you should never use your points for economy? Of course not. They're your points and you should use them however you want to. I myself often redeem points for economy flights regularly. The key and the point that I'm trying to make is make an informed decision. Check the cash price first, run a quick calculation, and make sure you're getting adequate value compared to your travel portal option. Now, if you found this tool that I made helpful, you can find it in the description or in the pinned comment of the video. And speaking of tools, I found all these flights using award search tools like Points.ch and Seats.aero. They've completely changed the game in terms of finding flights within seconds and minutes, but there's some things that you should know about them before leaning all in on them. Otherwise, you might miss something. I share these details in this video here. I'll see you there.